This is you, sitting there scrolling through your phone, heart sinking every time you see her name pop up, wondering why she doesn't reach out. Maybe this feels familiar. Maybe you've been doing everything right, giving her space, not texting, going full no contact, and yet the pain hasn't faded. You keep replaying every conversation, every laugh you shared, every moment you thought meant something. And now it feels like she's untouchable, like you re-invisible, like she's moving on while you're stuck in this endless loop of doubt and frustration. You wonder if she even thinks about you anymore. You catch yourself imagining her with someone else, and it hits like a punch to the gut. You tell yourself to stay strong, to focus on yourself, but the truth is, part of you just wants her to feel the loss, to realize what she threw away, to see your value, to finally respect you the way you deserve. And here's the thing. Maybe no contact isn't enough. Maybe sitting back quietly, hoping she'll notice, is exactly what's keeping her ego unshaken, untouchable, untamed. What if there's a way to not just step back, but to actually make her realize she can't forget you, she can't stop thinking about you, and her ego finally comes crashing down? Are you ready to find out how? Here's the opening you're looking for. Most men get this wrong because they think absence alone equals power. They sit back, do the no contact, and wait, hoping she'll magically realize what she lost. Maybe you've tried it too. Maybe you've told yourself that silence is enough to make her feel the weight of her choices. But here's the truth. Real masculine power isn't passive. It isn't hoping. It isn't waiting. It isn't silently hoping she crumbles. The core principle most men overlook is this. Presence creates value, absence creates curiosity, but action creates consequence. You don't just disappear and hope she hits rock bottom. You create a reality where she can't ignore your worth, where she sees your strength, your confidence, your unshakable frame, and suddenly her ego begins to crack. This isn't about revenge or games or ego trips. It's about understanding the dynamic that naturally commands respect and stepping into it fully. Because until you do, no contact will only leave her untouched and you frustrated. He's sitting alone in his apartment, the dim glow of the city lights spilling through the blinds, cutting lines across the floor like reminders of all the moments he let slip away. The phone rests face down on the table, silent. He's told himself he's strong, that no contact is enough, that if he just disappears, she'll notice. But the silence, it's deafening. Every shadow in the room whispers her name. He remembers the way she laughed at something stupid he said, the way her hand felt brushing against his. And now, nothing, just emptiness. His chest tightens. Does she even think about me? He shakes his head. He knows he can't sit here forever, waiting for her to feel the weight of what she lost. That's not strength, that's surrender. A flicker of something ignites inside him, a quiet, controlled fire. He doesn't want her to chase him. He wants her to see him, to realize the man she walked away from isn't broken, isn't desperate, isn't waiting for her validation. The city hums outside, indifferent, and in that hum, he hears a truth he's been ignoring. Absence isn't enough. Power isn't passive. He lets out a slow breath, his hand brushing over the table, feeling solid, real. I will make her see me, not by chasing, not by begging, but by existing so fully, so completely, that she can't ignore it. And in that moment, the ache in his chest doesn't soften, it sharpens. Because he knows the next move, the one that changes everything, is already his to make. Here's a version that hits that emotional truth while waking the viewer up. Most men think that no contact alone is a power move. They tell themselves, if I disappear, she'll realize what she lost. But here's the truth. Absence without presence is invisible. You can vanish from her life and she might barely notice, because the energy you give off, the way you carry yourself, is what really matters. Another false belief is thinking that pining in silence makes her regret it. It doesn't. Waiting quietly while your world shrinks around her absence only feeds your frustration, not her awareness. Real power comes from creating a life so full, so unshakably confident that she can't ignore your worth. That's what cracks her ego, not your silence. She didn't ghost you. You disappeared from yourself. Strength isn't hiding. Strength is existing fully, deliberately, so she finally sees what she lost. She's not ignoring you. She's noticing the man you've decided to become. This is what the 3% man understands. Power isn't created by absence alone. He knows that disappearing and hoping for regret is weak energy. True influence comes from presence, a calm, magnetic presence that exists whether she notices or not. He doesn't wait for her to feel the weight of loss. He radiates confidence, value, and purpose in every moment of his life. This is how he leads, with presence, not pressure. He moves through the world anchored in himself, not in her reactions. He doesn't beg, plead, or chase validation. Instead, he invests in his growth, his experiences, and his vision for himself. And in doing so, he becomes unavoidable. not because he forces attention, but because he lives at a frequency she can't ignore. The mindset shift is simple but powerful. Your worth is not defined by her recognition. Your power is in how fully you embody it. When you lead with presence, the ego she carries meets a force it can't resist. And that's when real respect, real impact, and real closure happen. He's sitting on the edge of his bed, the night pressing quietly against the windows. The phone is still dark, silent, and for a long moment he lets himself feel the ache, the loneliness, the frustration, the sting of being overlooked. But then in the stillness, something shifts. A memory surfaces, not of her but of himself, the man who stood taller when life got hard, who laughed without needing approval, who moved through the world with his own energy. He breathes deep and realizes the truth he'd been ignoring. He's not defined by her choices, her attention, or her ego. His value was never hers to give, and his power was never in her noticing. It was inside him all along, quiet, steady, undeniable. And in that moment, he stops waiting. He stops shrinking. He remembers the force he carries simply by being fully himself. The ache doesn't vanish, but it transforms into clarity, into resolve, into the unshakable knowledge that he doesn't need her to recognize him to know who he is. He rises, shoulders back, eyes steady, and for the first time in a long time, he sees himself as the prize. And in that awakening, he finally feels what real power tastes like. You don't need her to see your worth. You need to remember it yourself. And in that truth, her ego finally meets its match.